Facebook here, Instagram here. Facebook's a bit slow. But yeah, thank you for joining me today, guys. It's great to see you. Hello, Anita. Thank you for the wave. I'm going to be sharing today, giving you a sneak peek of my upcoming webinar, which is happening next week on Tuesday. And that webinar is called the 10 Steps for Optimum Wellness. Now, if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, maybe you've seen me talk about it, yeah? You can check that out. I've got an IGTV video about it. Facebook, there's a Facebook event created for it. It's also on my main page, but you can have a look at it there. And yeah, I run through what I'm going to be covering, everything in those videos and on those posts. I'm not going to spend time going through all that today. The purpose of today is to give you a sneak peek of one of those steps, right? So if you haven't signed up for the webinar, I encourage you to, of course, it is a free webinar, and you can do that via Instagram, via Facebook. Just find the post. I'll also put a link once I figure out, I'm not good with these lives, once I figure out how to, put in a little link and stuff, I'll do that. Otherwise, just check the IGTV or the link in my bio. And on Facebook, go to the event page. That's the easiest place to find it, and you'll find the link there to join. So I encourage you all to join, of course. But without any further ado, I'm going to get right into this step that I'm sharing with you today. Now, the steps are not in any particular order. 1 through 10. There's no particular order of priority. I see them as all being equally important. But the one that I have picked to take you through today is one that I hold very dear to me. Any clients will know, they'll know as soon as I say it, they'll be like, yep, of course you picked that one. It's something that I'm super, super passionate about. And no, it's not diet. Diet is on there, but that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm going to be talking about today is step number 4. And that is low toxic load. Super, super important. And what does low toxic load mean? Basically, it means that it's similar to what it means for humans, right? Unfortunately, we live in a world where there's lots of toxins. We can't escape those toxins. They are everywhere, right? But what we can do is reduce them. And the reason why we want to reduce them is because the more toxins that our bodies, our human bodies, our animal bodies are exposed to, the harder our bodies are required to work. And what can happen with that increased toxin exposure is inflammation and disease. And so we want to avoid that. This is all about 10 steps for optimum wellness, right? Not moderate, optimum. And so by creating an environment where your pet has a low toxic load, you are going to help to increase their chances of optimum wellness, increase their chances of longevity, increase their chances of preventing disease, right? So it's super, super important. It's extra important. Sorry, I've got my notes down here and I just glanced at them and they distracted me. It's extra important for animals over us because animals have a higher exposure to toxins, right? And the reason why they have a higher exposure to toxins than we do is various reasons. They're smaller than us. They don't wear a protective layer of clothing like we do. They lie on the floor, naked. They lie on the floor naked. They lick the floor. They lick themselves after licking their floor. They walk around in bare feet all the time. They get up on, surfaces, with no protection whatsoever. So because of those factors, their exposure is greater than ours is. We're bigger, we have clothing, all of those other things, right? So it's extra important for them. It's still important for us, but I consider it to be extra important for our animals because of that high risk exposure. And I'm referring to a study later on one of the aspects of low tox. That's going to really make that abundantly clear for you guys in terms of how it compares to animals and us, right? So low toxic load, it means minimizing the toxins in your animal's environment to help them to achieve optimum wellness, disease prevention, and longevity. It's important for those reasons, but extra important because of the unique factors that go into an animal being an animal. Now, what are the sources? I'm going to run you through some of the sources, and then I'm going to share with you some solutions for you to reduce and minimize the toxins in your animal's life to achieve that low toxic load, right? So some of the main sources, or some of the sources, are household cleaners. That's a really obvious, well, I mean, it's obvious to me. I will say, in terms of my experience, I use 100% natural household cleaners in my home. I haven't always done that because, I wasn't born knowing, this stuff. I've learned it, right? I used to use, you go to the supermarket and you buy the stuff, right? But these things, things like, what we clean our floors with, what we clean our surfaces with, what we clean our linens with, all of these things where our animals have exposure to these areas where, they're in their daily lives, they're lying on the floors. My cats are on the benches all the time because that's what they do. And so if I was using chemicals, or if, you're using chemicals on the floor, they're licking the floor. If you're using chemicals to wipe the benches, they're licking the chemicals that you've used to wipe the benches. Any sprays that you're using as well in the home, so, cleaning sprays, but your smellies, like, your air fresheners, your plug-ins, candles, incense, depending on what types that you're using, can have toxic impacts, right? Then you've got water. Water is a source of toxins. Unfortunately, the water that comes out of our tap has got lots of chemicals in it, fluoride and things like that. And so if we're giving water straight out of the tap to our animals, they're going to be exposed to those toxins, right? Now, I've got 3 cats. One of my cats, I go in the shower, I have a shower, and then she goes and drinks the water from the shower, right? Getting a filter on my shower has been on my to-do list for a very, very long time. I still haven't done it. I'm not perfect. I'm far from, as low tox as I'd like to be, right? Work in progress, baby steps. But where I can control it, she also has a water fountain, a ceramic water fountain that has filtered water, and it has a filter in it, but I also put filtered water in it. So it's minimizing the amount of chemicals that she's getting if she was just drinking tap water, right? Food is a huge route, however you want to say it, for chemicals into our animals' bodies, into our animals' systems, right? Depending on what food you're feeding. Majority of people are feeding, majority the same type of food, the commercial processed food. And the things with that is there's chemicals in there, there's artificial ingredients, additives, flavors, preservatives, all of those things. And then, big thing that is glyphosates. Oh my gosh, glyphosates, right? And that comes into my category of pesticides and weed control. So in terms of what you use in the garden, right? If you think about your animals, they're on the grass, they're eating the grass, and I've got a story to tell you about that too when I finish talking about when I join together the glyphosates and the food dots, pieces of the puzzle. But with the food and the glyphosates, right? So when you're buying the food and it's come from wherever it's come from, if they use glyphosates and it comes through the food, and I'm not making this shit up, right? There's a study that's happening at the moment, and I'm going to provide you with the links to that study. And obviously in the webinar, I'm going to be providing you those links and that information as well, with some beautiful graphics and things. But this study has shown, Christy is my best friend from primary school, everybody, and she has just joined. Woohoo! Anyway, sorry, I digress. What was I saying? Glyphosate's food study. Yeah, so there's a study that's been done that has shown that animals absorb 50% higher of the toxins in glyphosates than humans do. And I'm just going to get, just so I quote correctly here, where is my piece of paper? Up to HRI labs, they've done this pilot study, and it showed that animals are likely to have high levels of glyphosate in their bodies, up to 50% higher than humans. Now, this lab is doing a comprehensive pesticide study on pets and animals, and you can actually take part in that study. And they're looking at the sources of animal exposure to glyphosate, and what they've found so far is it's the food that is having the highest impact. It's got the higher, not the grasses, the chemical spray on the grasses, but it's actually the glyphosates that's sprayed on the food that goes into the pet food. Scary, right? And then they've also found that animals who are eating a raw food diet, their glyphosate levels are much lower than animals who are eating your, common, most popular pet foods. Crazy. Tufts University School of Vet Medicine has done a study over a number of years on a number of dogs, and they found that 70% of dogs, there was a 70% higher risk of canine malignant lymphoma in dogs exposed to professionally applied pesticides. Now, as I said, I'm not making this up. I'll put a link to that study in as well. However, I forget how to do it on Instagram, but on Facebook, I'll be able to drop it into the description of the post. But yeah, it's scary and it's real. And so, it's important for us, and it's just as important, if not more so important, for our animals, that we get to understand what these toxins are in their environment, and then we can start to take action. So you've got your household cleaners, your water, your food, your treats, pesticides and weed control. Medications are a source of toxins for animals, like veterinary medications, vaccinations. I'm not a vet. I can't tell you not to do these things. I can share information with you. And then it's up to you to make a fully informed decision. Parasite, flea, tick, worm. These are all medications, right? They're all sources of toxins for our animals. Shampoos. What are you washing your dogs and cats with? Cats, well, really, they can wash themselves. Unless they get into a situation. If you take your dog to a groomer, or if you have like a mobile hydro bath come, you can ask them to use your own natural shampoos. I used to do that when I had a dog. I'd have the hydro bath people come, and I would, say, can you please use these shampoos? And they did, no problem, right? So you can, again, once you understand, you can take steps to manage that, to reduce the risk. Linens and bedding, I flagged that as well. I was going to tell you my little story about pesticides. I rent an apartment, a house, and the owner is like very, very on the Sunshine Coast hinterland, and the owner is very, very strict and particular about weeds. And a lot of these weeds, they're actually medicinal. Like, you're talking about dandelion and chickweed and stuff like that, and he's like, you got to rip out all the weeds, and the easiest way to do it is to spray. And that's what we do in the country. We spray, because I moved up from Brisbane, so I was a city gal, and it's just like, don't give me that country versus city stuff, right? And he's saying, easiest way is just to spray. And I said, there's no way in the hell I'm using chemicals to spray in my garden. My animals are walking on the grass, lying on the grass, eating the grass. I will look into it, and whether I have to just pull them out by hand or find a natural solution, but I will manage it. I'll take care of it. And again, it's like knowing what the concerns are, and I think I quoted that study that was done that showed that animals have 50% higher levels of glyphosate exposure than we do. So it is really, really, really important. So some solutions. I've given you all the doom and gloom, and there's a lot. There is a lot. But it isn't all doom and gloom. There are solutions that we can do. And I've touched on some of them already. And one is like, start to learn. Do things like join my webinar. You follow me on social media. I'm going to be talking about this stuff, So starting to learn about what the sources of the toxins are in your home, in your animal's environment. And then start to identify one thing that you're going to work on, right? And then start to focus on removing that or reducing that usage. A healthy diet is really, really important. Healthy diet to support their immune system, their body's ability to function at optimum. I will, of course, that is one of my 10 steps, and I will, of course, be going into that on the webinar. Antioxidants, incorporating antioxidants into your animal's diet through food, through natural supplementation, feeding organic if you can. And I know that isn't possible for everyone, and I'm not here to say you must feed organic, but there are studies, these same people that are doing the glyphosate studies on animals and humans. They're also finding that, people who are eating an organic diet have significantly less glyphosate residue in their body than people who don't. So if you can, if it's available to you, then look into doing that if you're not already doing that. Immune support, we want to support the immune system. You can do that through foods that are rich in vitamins A and C and E. So there are lots of things that you can do to reduce your animal's toxic load. And yeah, so that's step 4 in a nutshell. I probably shared with you today a bit more than I will on the webinar because like I've got 10 steps to talk about. So 15 minutes times 10 steps is like 2.5 hour webinar. Um, but you know that gives you a good insight, and if you join the webinar, you're going to get this information. I'm going to give you links to all the studies and things like that, and you can then, you know, if you can't attend it live, you can get a copy of if you save your spot, you can get a copy of the replay, and then you can watch it over and over again. So at least then you're going to be really well informed on step 4, low toxic load. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them. If, you know, I end this live, which I'm about to do soon, if you have questions after, then just pop them in the comments below or send me a message. Happy to answer them. And yeah, again, I say, if you haven't signed up for the free webinar yet, it's happening next week, Tuesday, 10th of November. 2 sessions, 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. And you're going to learn all about my 10 steps for optimum wellness to help your animals be as healthy as they can be. So thank you for those of you who joined me live, and those of you who are watching it after, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a beautiful, beautiful weekend.